I've been really, really lucky to get to stand on the stage and interview two amazing speakers during the conference. And when I say lucky, that's a bit of a lie, because as soon as we got the moderator schedule, I pretty much stole them both away, because they're both amazing women, and I guess I somehow hoped that sitting next to them on stage was contagious and that some of that awesomeness was going to rub off. So please welcome our next speaker, Gloria Roheim McRae. She's a multilingual author of an Amazon bestseller, a thought leader, speaker, co-founder of a digital strategy company, Wedge 15, and perhaps most importantly for today's talk, she's her own boss. Give it up for Gloria.
Masha, you should know you're awesome too. You don't need any more contagious energy. All right, how's the microphone? Good? Excellent. Okay, so I am Hungarian. Where did Drew go? I can't see him in the audience. But I am also Canadian. And I flew across the Atlantic Ocean to Montenegro because I have an addiction. I have addiction to something that I want to share with you and that I think is critical, especially given everything we've heard in the last 2 days around startup funding, around getting to know your customer, about design thinking. Amazing concepts, amazing conversations. And for each one of those things, the thing I'm addicted to is positioning. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Gloria Roheim McRae, and I am addicted to lattes and to positioning. And it doesn't seem very sexy, you know, it's not disruptive, and it's not innovative, and you know, we're not talking about raising millions and millions of euro in any kind of funding or mergers and acquisitions, but it's positioning. And it's not just positioning that matters, it's positioning like a boss. And that's not just a popular hashtag, that's something that is a mentality, it's a way of thinking. And it's the thing that I've used for my entire career, and now as a businesswoman, to really make an impact. So, wow, that is very bright. It just blinded my eyes. So one of the things, you know, that makes this so exciting for me is that I've spent my, you know, entire career positioning myself. In fact, I'm probably not much different than most of you in this room. I turned 30 this year, but here's what I think is different. I've repositioned myself and positioned myself 20 different times for 21 different jobs by the time I was 25, before I decided I was really good at this and I should probably make a business of it. And so in 2010, I quit my last job and I became my own boss. And what do? I position, I support businesses in positioning, I help entrepreneurs position themselves for startup funding, I help organizations position themselves for growth. You can call it marketing, but I call it positioning like a boss. Now, this is my positioning. Notice, not a linear line of path in sight. It's bubbles. It's bubbles of different parts of my life, much like yours, much like your business. There's a story to tell for every single entrepreneur, for every single person looking for a career boost, for that promotion, for funding, whatever it is that brings you to this conference. If you're a student leaving the university and you're thinking, what next? Positioning is your business first. And this doesn't happen by accident. You're gonna see. I've lived in multiple different countries. My father lived in Budapest while my mother lived in Hungary. And so growing up, I was constantly repositioning myself first ethnically. Who am I? You've noticed a schizophrenia here today. I'm Canadian sometimes, and then I'm Hungarian other times. But this is actually a leverage point. You may be a developer, you may be a novelist, you may also be an engineer. Think about how you can use these tools to position yourself like your own boss. And when I talk about bosshood, I'm not just talking about literally running a company. I'm not using entrepreneurship for that reason. I'm talking about thinking like a boss and positioning like a boss. Because boss, to me, implies ownership. It implies responsibility. It implies that you decide how you position you. It's not up to other people. They may not get what you're positioning at first, but you have a lot of tools on your side and ways of thinking that can really help you position yourself like a boss. So, what does actually go into positioning your product, positioning yourself, or positioning your company? Well, here's what we're going to discuss. It's not super complicated, but it does take some serious critical thinking. Know thyself. This is one of the things that is so simple. But when you ask people, like, who are you? What do you care about? What do you do? Most people are stumbling, and what they tend to split out is some kind of title that they have somewhere, which can describe something, but if I describe myself by my title, then I'm missing all these other things about me, and there's a story that is actually required to tell. You've heard some of the VCs talk about the importance of understanding who the founders are. Who makes this team up? What are their skill sets? Who are these dynamic people? Sometimes it takes that you simply come back again and again and again, you're persistent. What can you demonstrate in your story, the way you position yourself online, the way you build relationships with people? Literally, the way you dress when you show up somewhere. The simple, simple things that we take for granted while we go chasing university degrees and education and all kinds of things that we think are like some kind of armor that will just position for us. But it's up to us. So knowing yourself, knowing your customer, and this is key for every startup and business person in this room. And if you're looking for positions in companies, your customer becomes your employer, or the customers that that company serves. You got to really understand them. And we've talked a lot about this. We've talked about doing design thinking, kind of blank slates, really understanding what it is that those customers want and need from you, what their problems are, how they're thinking. But I want to go deeper than that. Your customer is not everybody. And I just want to see a show of hands, an invitation for participation. How many people have heard, oh, everyone's my customer? Okay, so this is a good 3/4 of the room put their hand up. Here's what I want you to remember about that. You have to define it, because something for everybody is something for nobody. We're at a point where, Yvonne mentioned earlier, it's noisy. How do you actually get heard in a space where everyone's trying to talk at you? We're talking about our breakfast, and we're talking about the new app that we launched. How do you start to narrate something with intention? You have to know the customer you want to speak to and speak to their language. You have to form the positioning toward the people you want to serve if you're the product that you're talking about. You have to think about it if you're positioning yourself to the investor. Not every single thing is a standard pitch that you just go into with everybody and you spew at them. You got to get personal. You got to get human about it, because what we do forget in this entire world of business too often is that we're human beings talking to other human beings, trying to do business with other human beings. And although we have different desires and interests, we are fundamentally looking to connect with one another in some way, shape, or form. So the more you can create that, and each person has a different way of doing it, the stronger your positioning is. And then we had reference to Seth Godin, so it looks like you might have to bring him next year, organizers. He's being referenced everywhere, left, right, and center. So Seth Godin, great American marketer, one of my favorites. He talks about the purple cow. And I love this analogy because immediately I see a field with all the regular old cows, and black and brown, and then this purple cow. And all you want to know is, what's up with the purple cow? And purple cow, really think about it this way. What is your distinguishing factor? Like, what is something that your product has that you have that it can be out of the norm, but that you can really use to put yourself outside of the crowd? So that's the deal when it comes to positioning like a boss. So knowing yourself, what does that even mean? That's really understanding, again, if you're the individual, what matters to you? What do you believe in? And how can you make communication choices to let the world know that that's who you are and that's how you're positioned? So that when someone thinks, oh, we got to get someone to come talk about positioning like a boss, that I would be top of mind. Or that if there's someone who's thinking about wanting to monitor the health and the well-being of their baby, that they think of that app. They think of Bellabeat, and they think about that person first or that product first. You have to know who you are as a company, who you are as a person, to your core. And you can't bullshit this. People can feel it. You meet people at conferences like these and you're networking, and some people have really impressive things to say to you, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, something doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel like a fit. The positioning is somehow off. The presentation is somehow off. And sometimes that doesn't matter, but It's the cumulative effect of everything you do to position yourself that really creates the impression that you end up having. The awareness that you build, the products you end up selling, and the jobs you get hired for. So getting to know yourself is getting straight with yourself. And I had to do this 21 times before I figured out, wait a second, there's a pattern here. I have what looks like a portfolio-based career, which I only heard is a new term that finally defines what my resume looked like until 2010. What's up with this woman who goes to university, who changes jobs about every year, who has 21 jobs by the time she's 25, and not just any kind of jobs, all kinds of titles that I had to experiment with before I realized, nope, not that one. Nope, not enough room for impact there. Okay, that sounds really good, but that isn't really me. And you know what, who am I kidding? I don't like wearing a suit. So this financial services job is just not gonna work out for me. You have to really get to know yourself. And the only way to do that, to know thyself so you can position thyself, is to try things. We talked about experimenting. You have to experiment. And being raised by, Hungarian parents and having lived literally half my life in Budapest, half my life in Toronto, I really get this interesting crossroads between this perceived North American thinking around taking risks and being scared but going through it anyways, which, by the way, is not just a cultural phenomenon in North America. There's more than enough evidence in Eastern Europe that exists here too. You just got to look for it. It's very easy to say, I don't position myself, we're more conservative, and culturally it sounds a little obnoxious. But that's not true either. That's just the lazy way out. Positioning yourself for what you want and what you're selling to the people for whom it's for makes the impact that you're out to make. So knowing your customer. When we've worked with the different clients we've worked with, or I'll give a better example, a more tangible example. We'll talk about my book because it's a different market, and you have to position things differently. I'm interested in the next generation redefining the world of work. So what Scott was talking about this morning really matters to me. I've been struggling with this. I'm sure, if you're being honest, most of you in this audience are thinking about this too, like, what's next? What am I gonna do with my life? If all these conventional jobs are changing, then where can I go next? And the advice that I'm getting from parents and peers and my professors is advice that was relevant and useful 2 decades ago, if even still then. So, I'm interested in having a positioning conversation and redefining the world of work. I'm a 30-year-old woman, I don't have funding, but I have a whole bunch of ideas, I have a shit ton of experience, and I want to share it with the world. So a book makes perfect sense for me. But not just a book that I have to go now find an agent for, but a book that I can produce, because really, writing a book is not about finding an agent and finding distribution channels. It's about sitting down, getting your ideas to paper, putting your arguments together, doing your research, and sharing what value you have to share. And then when it comes to positioning, you could immediately imagine a square book with this much color does not appeal to anybody probably over 50. This is obviously a little bit younger. This is obviously a little bit different. In fact, it's a square. So you touch this, and you know already, okay, this isn't a standard book. This isn't gonna be a scholastic kind of thing. And you may get curious. When you open the book, I chose font sizes to position a specific thing. Friendly, welcoming, space. Design, strategy, and knowing your customers, it makes a huge difference. Within 2 weeks of putting this out, I crowdfunded some money. I marketed exclusively within my network. I got people along the book writing process with me when I had an idea and I didn't even know the title. I crowdsourced the title of this book. I voted on Facebook with people. And all of the whole project came together, and by the time the book was out, people wanted it. This is what we've been talking about for 3 days, and it doesn't always have to be something super complex that costs thousands and thousands of euros. I would actually disagree with some of the conversations here, saying that the only thing that matters and is worth pursuing as a business are really big business ideas that you can acquire later, or that are set up for funding. That's one kind. And I've seen incredible lives lived, fulfilling lives lived, doing things that you may just think are ordinary. But the impact is still there. And the reality is most of you in this room are not positioning yourselves for all those venture capitalists, to fund your businesses. You probably just want a really fulfilling life that matters. So, positioning does that. This did not sell to the over 50. It sold to the 30 and under. It has me here in Montenegro today. It's because of this. It has me traveling to universities and colleges and to startups and accelerators and mentoring them on positioning and branding. And it's excited my customers because there's a new dimension to the company that they're now working with. And this random colorful book that they want to know more about. It helps you build relationships. And at the end of the day, that's what really matters, whether it's with your customers or whether it's with your team. So to know your customer, you have to get in their heads. You have to be empathetic with them. You have to stand where they stand. You want to get to know their desires. And you have to test this. You don't always know this through research. For a long time, we wondered, for our company, for example, is being on Facebook really relevant, or should we be more promoting the projects that we work on with our clients than building our own company brand? And completely by accident, my husband and I got married, and we decided, let's just put our video on Facebook, our wedding dance video, okay? So nothing gets more unconventionally business than putting your wedding video and a dance music video on your Facebook page. But I can't tell you how much business we got because of it. Positioning ourselves like a husband and wife couple, because my husband and I are in business together as well. We have a team of people, and the reason that most people go with us over other larger companies or other suppliers is because there's a personal connection. It's the purple cow. Sometimes I swear, and frankly, in North America, that's becoming more and more acceptable. I put out personal things, and I'm really unapologetic about the way that I live my life, and I'm honest. And in a world where a lot of people are trying to be someone else, that was refreshing. It's a differentiator. And it causes business. So you don't have to be anybody but yourself. Just know what your customers want, what you have to offer them, and get to know them like they are friends of yours. You've got to get to know them, because otherwise, what is valuable to them? How do you choose what to post and to share, to blog about, what conferences to go to, where you're going to go meet these people? You can't know that until you intimately get to know this customer. And I can tell you that if you don't get to know that customer, you'll be going left, right, and center, if you haven't already. This will be familiar for many of you. I know we went through it as well. Wondering, are you a customer? Are you a customer? Do I have something for you? And all of a sudden, your positioning goes all over the place, and it's completely unclear. So it starts by getting to know you. It follows up by getting to know your customer. And then you got to define your purple cow. So again, people have, just like they have with innovation, a perception that being different means you got to be completely wild. Sometimes that's possible and it's worked. Other times it's completely backfired. The reality and the fun about being in a startup space and being an entrepreneur and just being somebody who's living a life that excites them and provides them with experiences day to day is taking risks and trying things out. And again, raised with this context from parents who grew up in a communist system and then being educated in an American school in Budapest and a North American schooling in Canada, I really saw the contrast between trying to keep everything safe and controlled and not wanting to let too many cards out, a complete legacy from a thinking that we no longer have to think about. It's not the Cold War. It's time to step out and take risks. I notice even being here, there's so many phenomenal people in this room that I've had quiet conversations with, yet when we have the Q&A session or the interactive session, there's like no hands. There's 3 or 4 maximum. And I wonder, I know you're not sitting there without ideas and without thoughts, but I do wonder what holds you back from trying something out, from asking a question that may sound stupid, from just experimenting, because that's how you find the answers to these 3 key questions. These 3 questions that help you position yourself effectively and powerfully. So I want to talk about one of the projects that we worked on as a tangible example of what being a purple cow, even for a large organization in a conservative country, looks like. So this is the story of Haute Caribe, the fashion industry documentary film that we produced and executive produced in 2012 in Trinidad and Tobago, a Caribbean island. It's It's where my husband's from. We first went there for Carnival. We partied, we had a beautiful time. And then we actually met people and ended up doing business. Went back a few months later to work with the government and the Fashion Industry Association on how could they bring Trinidad and Tobago's fashion industry to the world stage. This is a country that, let's actually do a little survey. Besides the North Americans here, but actually you too, who knows where Trinidad and Tobago is? That's actually awesome, thank you. Love it. It's just like when I ask my North American friends, do you know where Montenegro is? And they're like, Monte Carlo?
It's right next to Trinidad, right? Montenegro?
What's that?
Right next to Trinidad, like
just
the little
yeah, right off the
Caribbean
island, yeah.
yeah.
Actually,
Latin America somewhere.
They're exactly the same, actually. The coastlines, I swear some days I'm thinking which country I'm in. But the bottom line was this. They wanted to be Paris, Milan, and London. And we said to them, you can't be Paris, Milan, and London. You can be Trinidad and Tobago. And you have a rich, rich product and a rich industry here and a rich culture. How to position yourself is not to do what you always do in Trinidad and Tobago, and to take the more safe route and have a whole bunch of government officials in a video documenting, talking about the industry and its evolution. Let's shake it up a little. Let's make an MTV-style, fast-paced, really typically aesthetically North American thing so that people outside of this context, the customers you actually want to reach, the people you want to bring awareness to, actually resonate with the style of this. And so we did. And when we launched it, there wasn't a marketing budget. There was a production budget. We flew the best on our team down to Trinidad and Tobago. We shot the whole thing in a super fast 1-week turnaround. Within a month, the whole thing was done. And we launched it online to our tribe of people, which is about 10,000 people that have subscribed to our opt-ins on our websites, who have followed our events, my company and my husband's. And knowing that there's a huge percentage of foreigners who travel there interested in fashion, we just decided to release it to them. Just that one email alone, and literally 3 to 5 tweets and Facebook posts. Because it resonated with that exact customer group, and because we knew who we were positioning for Trinidad and Tobago, and what we were positioning, it went viral. And not many people can say that, and frankly, viral is another one of those awful terms. Oh, we want it to go viral. You know, let's be disruptive, let's have it go viral, and we could just walk around like robots and spew crazy terminology out all day. But what that really means is it goes beyond your initial push. It trickled in, people shared it, people got engaged, and within 30 days, 100 countries around the world had seen this piece. It had been shared and commented on hundreds of times. There were over 45,000 views, and this from a zero-budget marketing team, simply clear on how to position something and who to position it to so that it has impact. And that's the power of it. Since then, there's been funding of the industry, there's been direct correlations between the Pan American Olympic Games in Toronto, inviting fashion designers from Trinidad and Tobago to do a show there during the Pan Am Games next year because they saw that piece and they're investing in it. So, you know, big or small, and whether or not you're a solopreneur or you're in a big company, you really want to build something big, you want to go after the dream of something like Big Facebook. It matters how you position yourself the entire way. Tell your story, be a human being about it, get to know yourself and be honest. The only way to do it is to try things out. And when it doesn't work out, quickly learn, turn around and try something else. Do some research, but you're not going to get it perfect before you move. There's one quote that is really great from Facebook, and I think it's in their main lobby, and it says something like, "Done is better than perfect." And I'm not advocating sloppy launch. I'm not saying be lazy and just throw some things out there. But that's actually how most things work. There's iterations of every single app. There's iterations of who I've been as a professional for the last, decade of my very short career, but very robust career. And every time you position yourself, you learn more and more about yourself, so you have to go try it. I invite you for the rest of today to connect with each other and try different introductions. Try explaining yourself and what you do or what you offer in different ways. This is a safe place to actually try it. This is what conferences and workshops are excellent for. Before you go out there, you invest huge money, or you don't, or you just guerrilla tactic and launch. It's all about positioning like a boss. So, you're the boss. Position like one. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was really great. I have about 1,000,000 questions.
Awesome.
Unfortunately, we have about -5 minutes
Oh,
left
good.
for Q&A. So I'm going to try to pick my 2 favorite questions. We can take maybe one from the audience, and if you guys don't get to ask Gloria while she's on stage now, then please go find her. She's wearing an awesome blue dress.
Very loud blue dress.
The first one is, you mentioned that you went through 21 jobs before settling on being your own boss.
Yep.
I just want to know really quickly what happened in that 21st job that made you leave. What was it? What was the breaking point?
Okay, breaking point was 7-day work weeks, no paid overtime, no satisfaction on the market research studies I was doing, but being really excited by the knowledge I had. And at that point in time, I met my now husband, who was an artist, you know, starving artist, not so starving, doing really well. And so I had one example of someone who was making it, doing what they loved, and that's when I shifted my thinking into saying, why couldn't I try? I don't have children, I sold my property, now's the time.
Perfect. And you guys ended up working together, and from what I can tell, working together really well. He's a co-founder of your company, right?
Yeah.
And how do you guys navigate that personal and professional relationship? Like, do you go home, and then you're husband and wife, and then at work you're just business partners? Is it hard? Does it get easy?
My simple answer to that is there is no such thing as work-life balance. Period.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Someone needed to say that.
It's integration as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, you're welcome. I think I tried to figure that out. And if you even think of a teeter-totter, you're never, ever able to have both people in the air at the same time. It physiologically does not work out. There's always some kind of shifting and balancing. So we just integrated it. And when we realized that when we work together, we make more impact, our skills complement each other excessively well. I learned most of what I know about business from him. It just made sense. So we, instead of a prenuptial agreement, we have a post-nuptial business agreement in case it all doesn't work out. But it's been 4 amazing years, and it's honestly the best thing I could imagine for my life, because I don't have to choose between now is work, now it's play. It makes me go crazy. I just want to play and work all at once, all the time.
Perfect. And it sounds like you have it done. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun.
My absolute last question would be about Sheryl Sandberg, actually, and her huge lean-in movement that's garnered her a lot of attention outside of her position at Facebook, and the more recent Ban Bossy campaign that she started and had some celebrities join.
Right.
That whole story has had a lot of support, but it also had a lot of criticism from people, and women in particular, who claim that it comes from a pretty privileged place, and therefore a very unrealistic place for the majority of women, and young women, millennial women too.
Right.
So I wanted to know what your take on that was.
Okay. I dislike and I strongly disagree with ban bossy. I don't think we need to be banning words. That does not solve problems. We need to be having conversations, and we need to be exploring things and having straight conversations like this region is so excellent for, because you just say what's on your mind and you just get it out. So it's critical. Leaning in has worked. One of the things I was saying to a friend of mine earlier is that my father taking me to business meetings, when I was 2 and 3 years old and I drew at the table, I didn't think it would have an impact. Obviously, he knew it would. And my level of comfort leaning in at tables, simply because as a kid, I was in environments with all older men.
Where it was normal
Where it
to
was
be
normal.
at the table.
I never really thought about it, but here's the one risk about it, and this is all I would say to close. Leaning in is not sufficient. It's a first step. So I do know that you do need to get your voice heard, and you do need to be, even when you don't think you know how to do something, take the risk and say what you believe. But leaning in, cultural context will dictate a lot of things too. And leaning in is the North American way of doing it. And then physically, it's leaning in. But I've seen leadership styles that look like this. And sometimes this is more powerful. So what it really depends on is, again, who are you? What's your style? And be consistent with it. Because eventually, I'd really think that it all works out. It's not a matter of one special tactic that makes a difference, but I understand in a valley like Silicon Valley, leaning in probably, and I haven't been, so frankly I'm making a guess right now, probably makes a huge difference. It has in some instances for me, but other times leaning back has been exactly the powerful move that made the difference in that meeting. So there's no one answer.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We have time for maybe one question. Do we have a question over there?
Cool. Thanks for asking it.
It worked.
Yes.
People listened.
Revolutions in
We should have had you
Montenegro.
on day one, first session.
Kick it up.
Eko, firstly, thank you for your speech. I would like to ask you, because the main topic was positioning like a boss.
Yep.
What do you think? How much personal style or style of the person is important for positioning. And I would like also to ask you maybe personal question.
Sure.
Who was your stylist for event?
That's awesome.
For this event?
Me, myself, and I.
Really?
Yeah, thank you. I love that I look styled. That's amazing. Obviously, I'm brainwashing myself. So the first question was, sorry, I got the styling question. It totally took me over. The first question was positioning and how, what was the, how much style, personal style. So I think that varies industry to industry. Again, we love if there was a silver bullet that answered every question and the ultimate truth emerged, but there isn't. So I know that based on the kind of business that we are doing and based on what our Toronto-based digital strategy companies look like, they're much more conservative, they look very old school, so we took a different angle, so we added personality to it. And frankly, because we bootstrapped, we used what we had, which was personality. So we gave it what we had. We kind of took some risks because, again, putting your married life in a public eye, but it's gotten national media attention, Huffington Post columnist, the book sold like nobody's business. So it did pay off for us. And at the end of the day, we don't have personal things to sell. We have a business and we have products and services for people. So I think it makes a difference. And frankly, when people can Google you, and they are Googling you, whether you like it or not, they're gonna get a sense of you anyway. About me, I mean, it's fantastic. I believe everyone actually should have an About Me profile. It would make life a lot easier. It would make positioning better. But how is it for me? The personal branding or personal positioning, extremely important. Again, I am coming as usually the youngest woman in the room, usually the only woman in the room. I'm 5'2", 158 centimeters. Everyone towers over me, including Montenegrins. And so, there's literally a physical positioning that puts a sense of inferiority. So I just bring my actual heart to it. And when I didn't do that, I made less money. When I started doing it, because I just got fed up, I tried it, it started to work. So it's been 5 years of really that attitude, which has been very different from the earlier stages of my consulting career and my business. So I think it pays off, and I would really invite everyone here to consider how much they could put that in to what it is that they're doing.
Thank you so much. I know I'm going to be in line for questions
thank you.
after this ends.
Thank you.